By 50 basis points, the monetary policy rate was raised in the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Let's talk about this tonight on the show and also the report from the International Money Transfer Operators Corner. Welcome to Market Square. My name is Oluwa Pelumi Awe, and as always, I'm delighted you tuned in tonight. At the fourth meeting of the year, the Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Committee raised the interest rate from 26.25% to 26.75%. This was announced by the CBN Governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, at the end of the Apex Bank's 296th MPC meeting held in Abuja. Take a listen.
The committee's decisions are as follows. 1. Raise the MPR by 50 basis points to 27.65% from 26.25%. Adjusted the asymmetric corridor around the MPR from plus 100 to minus 300 to plus 500 to minus 100 basis points. Retain the cash reserve ratio of deposit money banks at 45% and merchant banks at 14%. Retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
You have on the screen right now the July Monetary Policy meeting decision there, as announced already by Mr. Olayemi Cardoso. The MPR at 26.75% from 26.25%. The CRR retained at 45% for deposit money banks. The CRR retained at 14% for merchant banks. Liquidity ratio retained at 30% and asymmetric corridor adjusted to plus 500 / minus 100 there. And also, if we're going to compare the figures of the previous month, you have on the screen as well the previous decisions made by the Monetary Policy Committee in previous months, in the month of May and also in the month of July already. It's been updated there. You see it's been updated there already. You have the one for the month of May. It happened on the 20th of May to 21st of May 2024. And also the one that they just had from the 22nd of July to 23rd of July 2024 there. Now, the recent hike totals a cumulative of about 800 basis point hike in MPR since the present CBN Governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, took over affairs of the bank last year, 2023. In February 2024, the MPR was increased by 400 basis points. It was a shocking move there by the MPC, but it was raised by 400 basis points. And then move on to the month of March 2024, it was raised by 200 basis points, making 600 basis points. And then in the month of May 2024, it was raised again by 150. That's like 750 basis points. And now the most recent increase happened to be around 50 basis points, making a total of 800 basis points already. 800 basis points already. Now, the monetary policy rate, which as at February was at 18.75%, now stands at 26.75%. The reason for the hike in the interest rate by the CBN seems genuine, seems valid. The inflation figures are still high. I'm checking the rate in the month of June 2024. It was around 34.2%, which represents a 0.25% increase from the last time the Monetary Policy Committee met in May 2024. Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, even in previous interviews, even with Bloomberg and other media houses, had made his stance clear as to the fact that the Monetary Policy Committee are determined, and their resolve is a resolve that can't be pulled back by anything as to how they intend to tame inflation by all means possible. Also, there is still some work to do in terms of the foreign exchange rate. As of this morning, it stood at 1,590 naira per dollar. You get to that when we do the numbers. 1,590 naira per dollar as at this morning, the 5th of July 2024. But on a ground level, it's still fluctuating between 1,450 naira to 1,550 naira per dollar. Now, the truth is that businesses have been negatively affected by these hikes by the MPC, as the cost of accessing capital has also increased. Some of them have even voiced their concerns and discomfort in regards to how that it's been raised again and again and again. The first of which, talk about the man whose face is on the front pages of many news platforms at the moment. Guess who that is? Mr. Lingo Dangote. During a manufacturer's event, I think last month, he made it clear that no economy can create jobs when interest rates hit 30%. In his exact words, he said, no economic growth will occur, nor will jobs be created if interest rates from banks stay at 30%. Manufacturing companies rely majorly on loans from banks. And if the MPR is being consistently raised, then they will find it difficult to be able to borrow money, and that would hinder them from increasing production and also hinder them from employing more people in the country. Now, for Mr. Lingo Dangote to say this man is one of the largest, if not the largest, private employer in Nigeria. If not the largest private employer in Nigeria at the moment. And he made this claim that, and just imagine when his refinery comes into full operation. I know there's controversy around that already, and I spoke about that the last time on the show, but just imagine when his refinery gets into operation. It's estimated that not less than 100,000 young Nigerians will get jobs when Dangote refinery gets into full operation. In fact, the organized private sector had on Monday, which was the first day of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, warned against the hike in the interest rate in advance of the meeting. There was a bit of a little protest and somewhat ahead of time to the MPCs telling them not to increase the monetary policy rate any further than they have done already. I know they are still fighting with the idea of paying 70,000 as minimum wage. I mean, the organized private sector are still not fine with the idea of paying 70,000 as minimum wage to people who work. Yeah, and they made this claim before this announcement was even made. Now, since the eventual announcement of this new monetary policy rate going forward from now, there have been some reactions by different businesses and organizations. I'm going to say a few things about them now. The National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industries, Mine and Agriculture, reacting to that, said that while the increase in the benchmark interest rate can control inflation, it often leads to higher cost and increased uncertainty for businesses, which can have negative impact on their operations and growth prospects. Also reacting to that, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NICA, warned that the latest increase in MPR to 26.75%, which is styled to address the persisting inflationary growth in the economy, will worsen the ability of businesses to maintain existing investment and forestall new investment. We have it already that since yesterday, the Senate fast-tracked the approval of the new minimum wage the approval of new minimum wage of 70,000 there. And that is to say that if this move isn't made, if this move to increase the MPR wasn't made, there's a tendency that even the money gotten will not be able to do a lot. You know, the idea of inflation is increase in salary becomes useless when inflation increases. If the rate of inflation increases with your income, then you are still at the same level, you are at the same level, not doing so much. Yeah. So even the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, in commenting about this, said a moderate increase showed that the CBN was listening and responding to suggestions of financial stakeholders to stop aggressive tightening measures. The first increase of the MPR in the month of February 2024, which was around 400 basis points, was surprising. It was termed very, very aggressive. And this move by the MPC to raise it by 50 basis points just tells about the fact that they seem to connect with the people and connect with a lot of producers and manufacturers in Nigeria. But if you ask me, I think this is the right time for the fiscal arm of government to come into full operation. You cannot run an economy just based on monetary policies. You need a support. You need a support from the fiscal arm of things to ensure that the move made by the CBN, just makes a lot of impact in the economy. Because what else can the CBN do? What else can they do? What else can the Monetary Policy Committee do other than what they have done already? If you check out the figures for the month of June, inflation figure for the month of June, you find out that there is still a lot. In terms of food inflation. And so what else can the Monetary Policy Committee do other than what they've done already? For instance, the recommendation by the Presidential Committee, which is quite commendable, on fiscal and tax reforms on the customs duty exchange rate, proposed that for people importing, the exchange rate should be pegged at 800 naira per dollar. I mentioned to you already that as of this morning, a dollar to a naira is about 1,590 naira. As of this morning. Now, the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms said that the custom duty exchange rate should be pegged at 800 naira per dollar. What that would do is that it will affect the price of goods and services, meaning that when importers import for a lower amount, they're able to sell it here, and then we have goods go around. People will not go to the bank to get their money to buy stuff. The idea is when things are expensive, people go to the bank to get their money and buy stuff, and that brings about too much money in circulation. But when they don't have to go to the bank every time to get money, they keep their money in the bank, and that counts for something. Also, the federal government of Nigeria announced last week the 150-day duty-free import window, which is targeted at staple foods such as rice, such as maize, such as wheat, rice, maize, wheat, and even I think beans as well. And that should help to stabilize the price of foodstuffs. It's projected that by September 2024, a bag of rice should decrease to 70,000 naira from what it is at the moment. I learned the last time I checked, it was about 95,000 naira, and it's projected that by the end of September 2024, a bag of rice should go to sell for about 70,000 naira. Beans as well. Beans is now gold. The new gold is beans. The new gold is beans. Last time I checked, a bag of beans cost around 150,000 naira, and it's projected by the end of September 2024, a bag of beans should be sold for 110,000 naira. Now, corn as well. Corn is also on the high side. And at the moment, a bag of corn sells for around 105,000 naira. 105,000 naira, and by the end of September 2024, we're looking at that to say, hopefully, it should drop to 95,000 naira. Also, wheat flour. Wheat flour is at the moment sold for 59,000 naira, and it's projected by the end of September 2024, a bag of wheat flour should be sold at 50,000 naira. At 50,000 naira, and all this thanks to the window, thanks to the 150-day window that importers are to import without paying so much. And I'm guessing that before the 150-day elapses or reaches, more importers will bring in more goods into the country, and then they will begin to sell. And most likely, even before that time, many of these importers will even buy surplus, so that by the time it ends, they don't really need to go there again till after a while. But that also has a negative side. For the implementation of this, for effectiveness and correct implementation, the government has to monitor this very carefully. We know how things can spiral out into something which is not very, very great. The government has to monitor this as best as possible, and also ensure that the local suppliers are protected. I know Mr. Akil Adesina, in about 2 episodes ago, I mentioned about his reaction to this 150 free import thing. Well, he wasn't exactly happy with regards to that, and was that this will kill local suppliers, local farmers in the country. But again, this is needed, I think, at this time, as we get to the point in the economy where we should begin to see the impact of the policies made already. Households are expected to save more going forward, given the recent hike. Households are expected to save more, but beyond the recent hike, banks will begin to call for people to bring in money. And how will they do that? How do banks call people to bring their money? Do that by giving people higher saving interest rates. Okay, that's how banks do it generally. They give you higher saving interest rate, and that will reduce money in circulation and will also reduce inflation for sure. But that is not the only way to solve the issue of inflation. The federal government has to come into fore here and do what has to be done. My personal projection. If you listen to the episode last week, I gave a prediction that the MPC will most likely not raise the MPR more than 100 basis points. I said that. Give me my flowers. Give me my flowers. I said that already. And you see that it was about 50 basis points that it was raised by. Now, my projection is that the last quarter of 2024, all things being equal, given the policies I've seen already, inflation rate should not be more than 30%. Should not be more than 30%. At the moment, inflation stands at 34.2%. But by the beginning or possibly the midpoint of the last quarter in 2024, inflation figure should stay at 30%. Let's now do the numbers. The all-share index fell by 0.12% to close at 100,365.17 points, following a 0.08% loss registered on Tuesday at 100,486.12 points. All red there. You can see on the screen right now. All red in major parts there. Also, investors lost 68.49 billion naira as market capitalization decreased to 56.83 trillion naira, while the year-to-date return stood at 34.23%. FCMB was the most traded in volume, contributing 26.90%, while Access Corp and Zenith Bank followed closely. The value chart shows that Zenith Bank contributed the most with a 25.42% share. Access Corp and FCMB followed closely. And on the foreign exchange side of things, the NatFest rate depreciated by 0.48% from 1,564.54 naira per dollar to 1,572.03 naira per dollar, while the Bureau exchange rate appreciated by 0.44% from 1,590 naira per dollar to 1,583 naira per dollar. There has been a 39% increase in the inflows through the international money transfer operators, the imtos, for the first quarter of 2024 compared to the same period in year 2023. Now, this 39% increase in the inflows may be as a result of the reforms and policies implemented by the CBN, by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, let's do figures now. In January 2023, the inflows were at $295.21 million, but by January 2024, it had jumped to $383.04 million, which represents a significant rise of about 30%. And there was also the continuation of this upward trend in February. The inflows jumped by 65%, which then reached about $322.83 million, increase from $195.23 million in February 2023. And then in March 2024, inflows hit around $363.70 million from $279.79 million in March 2024, which is also a 30% increase there. Now, let's do some maths here. If you add the figures for the first quarter of 2023, and you will have about $770.23 million. But if you do the same for the first quarter in 2024, which is January, February, March, you will have about $1.07 billion, $1.07 billion, which represents a 39% increase. The kudos to the CBN for all the policies they have done. The CBN has been rolling out policies to attract more dollar supply through the imtos. I call them the imtos, the international money transfer operators from January 2024. As of 2023, the imtos were required to give rates within a permissible range of minus 2.5% to plus 2.5%, not too far from the closing rate of the Nigerian foreign exchange market there. You have on the screen again a circular, there was a circular in January 2024 issued by the CBN that removed that cap on exchange rates. That you have it on the screen, widely displayed there for you, okay? Widely displayed there for you. The CBN also established a minimum operating capital requirement for the imtos, for the international money transfer operators at $1 million for foreign entities and an equivalent amount for local international money transfer operators. The CBN then even placed a ban on the imtos from purchasing foreign exchange from the domestic market to fulfill their obligations, and then lifted the ban on imtos to now be able to trade in the official markets. Now, these are the efforts made already by the CBN, made previously by the CBN, to which may have contributed to the increase in the money given. You know, I mentioned it already on the show that the money realized is about $1.07 billion, $1.07 billion from January to March 2024. The CBN some months ago established a dedicated task force to double the remittance inflows, indicating a strong commitment to this sector. And also there were reports, and they are also to report directly to the CBN governor. The task force designed for the imtos were set to be able to reach the CBN governor directly to give him report as often as they have one. Now, there has been again the approval of new imto licenses. About 14 new additions have come into the imto circle, which naturally has led to more competition, better services, and potentially low fees there. Now, given the increasing cost of living in Nigeria, more persons staying outside the country have also been able to send money back home. You're talking about people staying outside the country, our diasporans have been able to send back home, send remittances to support their different families in Nigeria, because things are way expensive than they used to be. And when the more dollar gets higher than naira, the better for the people outside the country, because they can now send the same amount they've been sending home, and then still cater for the needs of their people, because the exchange rate is not favoring naira. So these measures are by the CBN as seem to be paying off already, as the income gotten from January to March stood at 1.07 billion naira. So there's been some noticeable increase in remittance inflows from and by the imtos, and the CBN needs to be able to continue in this light. Well, again, the federal government as well, like I've said on the show already, has to make effort to ensure that whilst the CBN is making sure that they are firm on their policies and the monetary policies, the federal government has to come here and make sure that whatever they do, they need to up their game to ensure that it supports the works of the CBN. On the show today, I have spoken about the MPR hike raised already. Open your eyes to the reactions by different groups, and also my recommendation and my projection for the month of September, saying that food prices should drop, and also my projection for the end of the year, the last quarter of the year, about the fact that inflation figure should not be more than 30% by the last quarter in 2024. I've also spoken to you about some good news in regards to the international money transfer operators, how that the CBN hit about 1.07 billion dollars from that place, given the policies they have rolled out. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me today. I want to get your comments with regards to the MPR. Do you support this increase? Do you support this increase in the MPR by the CBN. Let me know what you think in the comments there. Do want to follow us on all our social media platforms on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, even on Twitter. We're going to get back to you, follow up on all the things we post on our platform. My name is Oluwapelumi Awe. I look forward to seeing you on the next